Hey Talo, did you hear what happened to the princess?
Yeah, I heard she refuses to come out of her room too. Do you know what's up with that?
Don't gossip. It's the anniversary.
What anniversary?
Let's not talk about that. Anyways, we're almost at Ordon.
Wait, this is about our parents, the late king and queen, right?
Well, that's a bit of a long story.
Well, I'm up for a story.
Yeah, and I'm curious now.
Does this have anything to do with why she refuses to ascend to the throne and become queen?
Wow, you guys certainly have been thinking hard about this.
Well, yeah. Back in Castletown, a bunch of rumors are spreading.
Some say the princess is contemplating suicide. Others, well, they just say that she misses that one hero from the Twilight Invasion.
Didn't you know that hero, Talo?
That was a long time ago. And don't change the subject, Mac. What is going on with the princess?
You guys aren't gonna let this go, aren't you? The story is pretty grim though. I'm afraid I'll spoil your appetite for your dad's pumpkin harvest there, Talo. Fine. I'll tell you the story. Have you guys ever heard about the Gerudo-Hylian War?
A little. Was that when most of the desert folk disappeared?
Most of them disappeared. Some actually integrated within Hylian society. But what the crown won't say is how they disappeared.
What does any of this have to do with the princess?
I'll get to that. This is actually a story that my grandfather told me. When the war ended, Princess Zelda's grandfather was the ruling monarch at the time, King Deltus III. He took over after the death of the previous Queen Zelda from the Old Kingdom.
Yeah, people love him. He ended the military involvement in Gerudo Desert, right?
Yes, but something strange happened right before that. The thing about the war was that even when it was over and Hylian interests were seemingly fulfilled, troops were still stationed in the desert. My grandfather was there at the time. Apparently the king was intrigued with the desert people. Supposedly, their entire tribe are comprised of women.
That's a myth, though.
Maybe. But the late king, well, had a fancy for the Gerudo. So using both Hylian treasure and the armed forces, he coerced the surviving Gerudo to do what is basically slave labor, to build this gigantic coliseum out of the ruins of an old Gerudo temple. Officially, they said that the place was just a prison for war criminals.
Was it?
Despite what the state-made history books might say, the late king was, well, a sadist. The place was really a torture site, and they did some, well, questionable things. For one, they actually forced Gerudo to build statues of some of our soldiers. But something even stranger happened. The king wanted to figure out why the Gerudo were all female. He thought there was some big mystery behind it, that there was some grand discovery just hidden away. So he appointed an arbiter to study them. As you guys may have already guessed, many Hylians at the time saw the Gerudo as subhuman. Anyways, this arbiter along with other researchers oversaw this prison. They exposed Gerudo to graphic experiments and grueling torture, but realistically all these bloody experiments did very little for them. So the arbiter tried something different. He wanted to observe Gerudo behavior.
And how did he pull that off?
Inhumanely. The arbiter selected 4 Gerudo subjects. 3 of them were relatively elderly, and 1 of them was just a young girl. He placed them in one room with 1 sword. Then he went on with his disturbing social experiment.
A social experiment?
He promised only 1 of them freedom if that individual used the sword to kill all the others. Until this happened, the arbiter refused to let them go or even feed them. This experiment went on for days.
What?
His hypothesis was something along the lines that the 3 elderly Gerudo would kill the younger one and then they would fight amongst themselves.
So what actually happened?
Well, the 4 Gerudo refused. In the first 2 days, the experiment passed with no notable outcome. On the 3rd day, however, the 4 Gerudo began yelling out. But the arbiter replied that he promised freedom to the one who can kill all the others. On the 4th day, paranoia began to set in, and screaming began. The 4 started to bang on the entrance door, screaming for help for hours on end. At this point, some of the researchers and the soldiers stationed wanted to end the experiment right then and there. But the Arbiter remained steadfast. He would only grant freedom to the one that could kill all the others. On the 5th day, the screaming and yelling stopped. The 4 Gerudo at this point were all exhausted. Malnutrition set in, and then something happened. The 4 Gerudo knew that they did not have long to live. Once the Arbiter realized this, he said, "This is your last chance. I will grant freedom to the one who can kill the others." Then the 4 Gerudo sat up and stared at each other. The 3 elderly Gerudo looked at the younger 4th one. Suddenly, these 3 then huddled around this little girl and embraced her. Then, one by one, the 3 elderly used the sword to end their own lives. They did this because they wanted to save the young girl's life. They thought that she had the best chance to survive. Perplexed at the results, the Arbiter, along with the other researchers, unsealed the door to the room and ordered the knights stationed there to retrieve the girl. The room was dark, pools of feces littered the room, etc. The girl, however, refused to come with the knights. Traumatized by the events, she was hugging the fresh corpses of the other 3 Gerudo when they just yanked her away from the room.
Then what happened to her?
While bothered by these chain of events, some of the troops questioned what exactly they were doing in the prison. Eventually, these outcries spread to Castle Town, and residents there demanded an explanation from the crown.
Yeah, I think I remember my dad talking about that when I was younger. After the war, people were just sick of conflict, so they actually separated the desert from the mainland.
Yeah, there were fierce pacifist outcries back then, so much so that King Daltus III became wary of revolt. He ended all Hylian involvement in the desert, and he naturally pinned all the blame on the Arbiter and placed the entire guilt of building the prison on him, hence the name of the prison, Arbiter's Grounds.
So the king wasn't really a hero.
He was many things, but that's not the worst of it. The king ordered Arbiter's Grounds to be shut down, and all troops stationed there to return. However, the Gerudo imprisoned there all stayed behind. To this day, they are still trapped within that prison.
Wait, what happened to the girl then?
I don't know. My grandpa was stationed there as a guard, but he didn't really know that much. For all we know, that girl could still be trapped in there, just waiting for revenge. Or maybe that girl did make it out of the desert and settled down for a new life here in Hyrule. If that's the case, maybe some of her descendants are still around.
Wait, so how come people don't talk about this much? People in Castletown practically worship Daltus.
As you said before, King Daltus III is seen as a hero. The king that ended Hylian involvement in Gerudo Desert, what a hero. Eventually years passed and most everyone forgot about what really happened in the desert. The king never really answered for what he actually did. When he died, his son Friedrich ascended and became king. Then that tragic heat wave came along and he died of a heat stroke along with his wife, the late queen. As fate would have it, he actually died on the 15th anniversary of the closing of Arbiter's Grounds.
What?
Yep, and as a result, his only daughter Zelda is an orphan.
So that is the anniversary.
And it is today, actually. Maybe the reason why the princess has locked herself inside her room is because she is pondering about the history of the monarchy. Maybe that is why she refuses to accept the crown and become queen. Maybe she is still grieving for her late father. But ultimately, I don't really know what is going on inside her head. Heck, she might only have a bad case of food poisoning or something. But that strikes me as the most likely.
And what do you think will come of the princess? Should we be concerned?
Not really. All these rumors about Zelda committing suicide are just that, rumors. Besides, things have been rather quiet in Hyrule ever since that Twilight Invasion. Whatever she is up to, I am sure she has things under control. I hope.
How can I rationalize all the violence of old? To understand our history, we would need to explain the tale of equality and liberty itself. And it is a tale that will be told next time.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Special thanks goes to Anacloium, Tintan Man, and Anonymous Gamer for being a part of this spooky tale.